All right, so today we're going to be taking a deep dive into something pretty wild.
Yeah.
I mean, you've probably seen the news. Donald Trump,
Oh, yeah.
former president and president-elect, has just been sentenced for a crime here in New York.
Crazy.
So we've got articles from everywhere.
Yeah, from all over.
Salon, MSNBC. We even got the South China Morning Post chiming in.
Wow.
It seems like everyone has something to say about this.
Yeah, well, I mean, it is definitely a first
Yeah.
having a president-elect facing a criminal sentence while they're
Right.
getting ready to head back into the White House.
Exactly.
It's going to be fascinating to see how all of this plays out legally and politically.
Absolutely. So where do we even begin with this? I guess the conviction itself
Yeah,
would be a good place to start.
definitely.
34 felony counts
Wow.
of falsifying business records. It's not exactly a slap on the wrist.
No, not at all. And remember, all of this goes back to those hush money payments to Stormy Daniels during the 2016 campaign.
Oh, yeah, right.
But what's really strange is the sentence they decided on: unconditional discharge.
Unconditional discharge. So in plain English, what does that actually mean for Trump?
Well, basically, it means no jail time,
Okay.
no fines, no restrictions on his freedom at all,
So no punishment.
pretty much.
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
it's definitely not a typical outcome for a felony conviction,
Right.
and I think it really shows just how unusual this whole situation is.
So it sounds like the judge is trying to walk a very fine line here, acknowledging that this is uncharted territory
Right.
and trying to uphold the law without, causing a full-blown constitutional crisis.
Exactly. I think that was a big part of the judge's reasoning here.
It makes you wonder, though, if there are no real consequences, does this embolden Trump?
Yeah.
Does it set a dangerous precedent for future presidents?
Those are some big questions that a lot of legal experts are wrestling with right now.
Yeah, because it really makes you think about the balance of power here.
Yeah.
I mean, does this suggest that presidents are somehow above the law even when they're found guilty of a crime?
That's the debate that's going on right now.
Right.
Some people say that this lack of punishment really undermines the whole idea of the rule of law.
Right.
But then others think that the judge made the right call, given, all the potential chaos that could have happened if they decided to punish Trump while he's getting ready to be president again.
Right. And let's not forget Trump's reaction to all of this.
Oh, yeah.
He's not exactly taking this lying down, is he?
Not at all. He's been saying he's innocent this whole time,
Right.
calling it a politically motivated witch hunt.
Right.
He even tried to get the sentencing delayed, remember?
Oh, yeah. He appealed it all the way up to the Supreme Court.
Yeah, claiming presidential immunity.
Hold on. Presidential immunity? Can a president-elect even claim that?
That's where things get a bit tricky.
Yeah.
Presidential immunity is usually meant to protect a sitting president from criminal charges while they're in office.
Right.
But no one's really sure if that protection applies to someone who's been elected but hasn't taken office yet.
So the Supreme Court had to weigh in on that.
They did.
What did they say?
Well, in the end, they decided not to get involved, and they let the sentencing go ahead.
Okay.
They figured that going through with the sentencing, even with the unconditional discharge, wouldn't really interfere with Trump's presidential duties.
So even with the claim of presidential immunity, the Supreme Court basically said, nope, you still got to face the music.
Pretty much. But it does feel like we're in a bit of a legal gray area here.
It does. And I got to ask, has a U.S. president ever been convicted of a crime before?
Never. This is totally new territory.
Wow. So this is really making history, and that's probably why everyone's talking about it.
Exactly. It's not just a big deal here in the U.S., but all over the world.
Speaking of international reactions,
Right.
we've got articles from all over the place.
Yeah.
It seems like the whole world is watching this unfold, like some kind of
Yeah.
crazy political drama.
It's definitely got people worried about what this means for America.
Right.
I mean, how can a country say it stands for the rule of law if its own leader has been found guilty of a crime?
It's a good question, and one that's going to keep coming up as Trump gets ready to take office again.
Definitely.
This conviction, even without any real punishment, just adds another layer of complexity
For sure.
to an already pretty wild political landscape.
Absolutely.
So let's recap. We've got a president-elect convicted of a crime,
Yep.
a unique sentence that's never been seen before,
Right.
a claim of presidential immunity that's raising all sorts of questions,
Definitely.
and a global audience watching all of this with bated breath.
Yeah, it's a lot.
But let's zoom in a little bit.
Okay.
Before we get into the bigger implications, I think it's important to remind everyone about the specifics of this hush money scheme
Right.
that landed Trump in court in the first place.
It's important to remember the details of what actually happened.
Exactly. So let's rewind back to 2016.
Okay. So we're talking about a payment of $130,000 made to Stormy Daniels, the adult film actress,
Right.
allegedly to keep her quiet about an affair she had with Trump.
Yeah, and the timing of this is really important.
Oh, yeah,
It
absolutely.
happened just weeks before the election,
Right before.
which makes this way more than just some personal scandal.
Exactly. This is about potential interference in a presidential election.
Right. It potentially changed the outcome of the entire thing.
And that's what the prosecutors were focused on.
Right.
They were arguing that these payments, which, by the way, were funneled through Trump's lawyer at the time, Michael Cohen,
Oh, yeah.
were a deliberate attempt to swing the election
Right.
by keeping this damaging information about the affair under wraps.
So even though the charges were specifically about falsifying business records, the real issue was how this might have affected the election itself.
Exactly. It raises these really fundamental questions about how our democracy is supposed to work.
Right. So it's not just about legal technicalities. It's about fairness and accountability on a much bigger scale.
Exactly. And that's why this case has gotten so much attention.
It's pretty huge. And it makes you wonder how this unconditional discharge fits into all of this.
Yeah. Does the fact that there's no real punishment somehow make what happened less serious?
Right.
That's a tough question.
It is. And there are a lot of different opinions out there.
We've got legal experts like Ty Cobb, who used to be a White House lawyer.
Okay.
He thinks that regardless of the sentence, the conviction itself is going to have a lasting effect on Trump's presidency.
Interesting. So you're saying even if the conviction is overturned on appeal, the damage is already done.
That's what Khan seems to be saying.
Okay.
He thinks it'll always be a stain on Trump's reputation.
Right.
And it can make it really hard for him to actually govern effectively.
That makes sense. And he's not the only one who feels that way, right?
No, we've also got folks like Bennett Gershman, a former prosecutor.
Okay.
He thinks this conviction is going to be the thing that defines Trump's second term.
Wow.
He even said that historians will probably look back on this and say, hey, this was the time when a convicted felon was in the White House.
It's kind of mind-blowing when you think about it like that.
It is.
I mean, how is the public going to react to this?
Yeah.
If a president-elect can get convicted of a crime but not face any real consequences, what kind of message does that send?
Yeah, it really makes you question who's accountable at the highest levels of government.
Right. And if our system can even handle something like this.
Absolutely.
And it's not just the legal experts who are talking about this, right?
No, it's everyone,
Yeah.
political commentators, journalists, people all over the world.
Right. Everyone seems to be worried about what this means for American democracy.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of anxiety out there.
For sure, some people think this conviction will actually act as a deterrent.
Right. Kind of a warning to other politicians.
Exactly. Like, hey, no one is above the law, not even the president.
But other folks are worried that this could actually make people trust our institutions even less. Especially since Trump keeps saying that the justice system is rigged against him.
Yeah, that's definitely not helping things.
No, not at all.
So we've talked about the conviction, the sentence, the legal and political fallout.
Yeah, it's a lot.
But what about the international community?
Oh, right. The rest of the world is watching this whole thing unfold, too.
Yeah. How are they reacting to this unprecedented situation?
Well, we're seeing a lot of concern from all over the globe.
Hmm.
Articles from places like Al Jazeera, France 24, even the South China Morning Post.
Wow, so everyone's really paying attention.
Oh, yeah, they're highlighting just how worried people are about this case and what it means for the U.S.
I guess it makes sense. I mean, America has always tried to be seen as this model of democracy and justice.
Yeah, that's the image we've projected for a long time.
It's got to be pretty strange for them to see this happen.
Yeah, it definitely makes you wonder what they're thinking.
Right. Like, is America still a credible leader on the world stage?
Well, it seems like some countries, especially the ones that are close allies with the U.S., are kind of taking a wait-and-see approach.
So they're hoping that things will smooth out in Trump's second term.
Yeah, and that this conviction won't really affect things internationally.
But, I mean, can they really just ignore this?
That's the thing.
It's not every day that a president-elect has a criminal conviction on their record.
Yeah, you can't just pretend that didn't happen.
Right, and some countries aren't pretending.
Definitely not.
The ones that have been critical of the U.S. in the past are using this to point out what they see as hypocrisy.
Right, like America talks a big game about democracy and the rule of law.
Right.
But they can't even hold their own leader accountable.
Ouch. Yeah, that's gotta sting a little.
Yeah. It definitely gives them some ammunition.
It does. So it seems like this whole thing could have some serious ripple effects.
For sure.
Not just on America's relationships with other countries,
Yeah.
but also on its ability to be a leader in the world.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It makes the U.S. look unstable and unpredictable.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's going to be tough for the U.S. to be taken seriously as a global leader.
Right. So here we are with this incredibly complex situation.
A president-elect convicted of a crime, a sentence that no one's ever seen before.
Right.
A whole debate about presidential immunity.
And the whole world is watching.
It really does make you wonder what happens next.
I know it's the question everyone's asking.
How will this affect Trump's presidency?
Will it change the way he acts?
Will he be able to govern effectively with this hanging over him?
And what about the American people?
Yeah.
How will they react?
Will this just make the country even more divided?
Could this even lead to a constitutional crisis?
It's hard to say for sure, but one thing's clear. This is a really pivotal moment for American democracy.
This case really shows how fragile our system can be.
It does, and it forces us to confront some uncomfortable truths about power and accountability.
For sure.
It's a lot to take in. I know it can feel pretty overwhelming.
Yeah.
But that's why we do these deep dives.
Exactly.
We break down the information, we look at different perspectives, and we try to make sense of it all.
It's about understanding the challenges we're facing.
Exactly. And as this story keeps developing, it's important to stay informed.
Absolutely.
Keep the conversation going.
Yeah.
And keep asking the tough questions.
This isn't something that's going to go away overnight.
No, it's going to take time and a lot of critical thinking.
For sure.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with something to think about.
Okay.
This conviction, even without any immediate consequences, is going to affect Trump's presidency in some way.
Right.
But how will it affect him?
Yeah. What will he do?
Will it make him more careful, more defiant?
Will he try even harder to prove his critics wrong?
How will this experience shape his decisions and actions?
It's a big question.
It is, and we'll have to wait and see how it all plays out.
We'll be watching closely.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
It's been a wild ride, and we'll keep following the story as things develop.
Definitely.
Until then, stay curious and stay engaged.